Greetings, friends, and welcome to the What's Right show. Happy Monday. We are now in June. I can't believe it. The year flying by as quickly as I've ever seen. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Sam at what'srightshow.com is my email. Of course, you can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at What's Right Sam. So yesterday, this absolutely heinous attack in Boulder, Colorado. This is monstrous. I don't think a lot of people realize just how horrific this was. So there was a group gathered in the Pearl Street pedestrian mall. This is a 4-block area in downtown Boulder that is frequented. A lot of tourists and students in this particular part of town. And there was an organized demonstration of protest, if you will, volunteers there with a group called Run for Their Lives. And these are supporters, obviously, of Israel and folks that are calling for the immediate release of everyone being held in Gaza, the hostages held in Gaza. And this group is out there peacefully gathered. And a guy here, Mohammed Sabri Soliman. Now, I'm naming him because the name is important. Mohammed Sabri Soliman arrives around 1 p.m. local time, lingers for a bit, and then begins lobbing incendiary devices at the crowd there. He's wearing a utility vest. He's got a garden sprayer. He's got it filled with gasoline. And he basically created himself a makeshift flamethrower. Victims of the attack were literally on fire. It's horrific. Now, I got a few different things here. First off, there's the immigration component of this. And this is, what's absolutely wild here is this guy was in the U.S. on a B-2 tourist visa. He came in August of 22. This type of tourist visa typically allows you to stay for up to 6 months. He remained illegally on it after it expired in and around February of 2023. And, then, of course, he was allowed to stay. I just think about this every time you see Democrats obstructing ICE agents. Every time you see out there some deranged liberals who are getting in the way of immigration officers removing people who overstay their visas in the country otherwise illegally, and think about it, in our midst are folks that want to harm us. They could be ordinary criminals from South America, but they also could be folks who have strong views on terrorism, on Islam, and be literally a fifth column within our country. This is extremely dangerous stuff. Every single one of these persons that was allowed to remain in the country under the previous regime could do harm here, similar to what Mr. Soliman did. Now, this is, so that's one component of it. And of course, there is the reaction to it. Now, I loved Trump's statement on it, which read in part, yesterday's horrific attack in Boulder, Colorado will not be tolerated in the United States of America. Speaking of, the perpetrator came into this country through Biden's ridiculous open border policy. He must go out under Trump policy, i.e., he must be deported. Now, of course, he's got charges of terrorism here to face. Trump adding, acts of terrorism will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. This is yet another example of why we must keep our borders secure and deport illegal anti-American radicals from our homeland. My heart goes out to the victims of this terrible tragedy and the great people of Boulder, Colorado. Now, this was his first statement on this on Truth Social. and it came out yesterday afternoon. Now, the FBI very quickly, under new leadership, very quickly identified this as an act of terrorism. Because, of course, you've got a guy named Mohammed going and lobbing Molotov cocktails at Jews. It doesn't take an investigative genius to come to a conclusion about what this is. And yet, and I'll play it for you here after the break, and yet the predictable actors in the mainstream media all falling over themselves to call him anything but an Islamic radical terrorist. Now, these are the things that I have to tell you. This is the stuff that just absolutely rankles me. And I've seen a lot of reactions today, particularly among some conservatives who have been outspoken about this issue as I have, saying, hey, suddenly other Republicans are discovering radical Islam. Interesting how that works. If you go back to September 11th, and I had this thought, Robbie, and I don't remember if we've talked about this as much, in the wake of September 11th, do you remember how George Bush was falling over himself to go out of his way to say this is not a problem with Islam? You know, I think he visited a mosque in that first week. He made statements about Islamophobia. It's a word, by the way, that is complete nonsense. Islamophobia. I'm not. Well, I've been accused of it. That's why people have accused me of Islamophobia. I have for years, way before it was popular, been talking about the dangers of importing people from parts of the world with ideologies from that part of the world that is not compatible with ours, because these people hate our society. They don't just dislike it. It's not just different, but they hate it. They loathe us. And the idea that you can bring them here and have everything be hunky-dory and fine, and everybody getting along and singing Kumbaya is ridiculous. I think it was about 9 years ago, and I put this up on Twitter earlier today, Robbie, and I don't know if you saw it, but you were there, and you remember how 9 years ago I was on air on KBC, and we typically did the show from behind the orange curtain. Those of you who were Sam Nation listeners, you guys remember this, behind the orange curtain. We had a studio in Orange County, because I wasn't going to be driving up to LA every day to do the show, but we were on an LA radio station. And occasionally we would drive up to the studio and do the show at the radio station. One of those days we did it at the station up in, back then, I think Culver City, right, Robbie? And we were at the Culver City station, and we are, we do the show, and I address something to the effect of basically Islam is a dangerous political ideology. It's not even a religion, and it's wholly incompatible with Western civilization, etc. And it's pretty benign. So benign. It's straightforward. No, nothing too revolutionary. And KABC, a venerated radio station in Los Angeles, when I walked out of the booth through it was this point 9 o'clock at night. We were on 7 to 9. I walked through the group of folks there, and I mean, they just were looking at me with daggers. It was wild. They were not pleased, and I believe the program director admonished me. Like, see, I gotta be careful about what you say. I'm not going to tell you what to say, but that's just maybe going too far. How many people are in this country that despise us? How many people have we let in? I mean, if I forget the illegals, but just the people we've allowed in legally who have these type of antipathies and who've acted on their impulses. I keep coming back to the story I know. I just knew the guy that we knew him fairly well, lived in Irvine, California, and did some driving for my parents. The guy that ended up shooting up the LL counter in 2002, killed a couple people. These people are in our midst. And we got to get real about it. And I thank goodness Trump is president. Now, it all fits, by the way, into a greater, bigger picture here, which is there's a lot popping off in the world right now. It's just all hanging by a hair. Again, thank goodness we have a president with some common sense and gravitas, because it's not good out there. I don't know if you saw this attack yesterday, Ukraine's attack on Russia. Got some thoughts on that too. It all is connected, and I'll explain how when we come back. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. The What's Right show is brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law. In a crash, call Sam & Ash 702-820-1234, because you deserve what's right.
I'm the best.
Personal injury law has been the same for a long time.
The best.
Big egos, greed, and sleazy schemes. We've had enough. Welcome to Sam & Ash, the new standard for personal injury law, where things are done the right way, because you deserve a team that delivers real support and results. When you have both, your whole world can change. Sam & Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right.
Greetings, friends. Welcome back. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. All right, great comedian, unfortunately no longer with us, Norm Macdonald, wrote all the way back in 2016 about Islamophobia. Quote, "What terrifies me is if ISIS were to detonate a nuclear device and kill 50 million Americans. Imagine the backlash against peaceful Muslims." Touché. The obsession with Islamophobia, and I say this in the wake of the Boulder, Colorado attack, is that the left does not want to admit that multiculturalism is nonsense. It's unworkable, because diversity for diversity's sake does not create strength. Quite the opposite. It opens our society up to attack from external forces. And this would all be, I think, quite common sense and reasonable, a reasonable position to take if it would allow for any kind of rational thought. Take, for example, the immediate reactions here of folks in the media. MSNBC, we got a guy named Muhammad. We know he's Muhammad. We know he's throwing devices, literally Molotov cocktails at, Jewish folks there, burning them, setting their flesh on fire. This is what MSNBC has to say.
As far as the investigation itself, we're still trying to verify and confirm some video, but it appears to show a significant portion of the incident as it happened. There's an individual that's taken into custody. He's a white male. Whether or not that's the person that police ultimately arrested and will ultimately charge in this crime, a bit of a question at this time, but that's just what we've seen so far.
All right. So Tom Winter calling him a white male. Well, I saw his picture. I didn't necessarily think that would be a good description. Regardless, the same MSNBC reporter, Tom Winter, saying that the information is still shaky, that there's no clear motive or legal status for the individual involved.
Sure, Chris. So this individual is a Egyptian national. Not clear immediately when he arrives in the United States. We're still working on that, and whether or not he is still allowed to be in this country, and whether or not he came into the country legally, and whether or not, if he did come into the country legally, if he was still allowed to be here. In other words, did he overstay a visa, or was he here legally and arrived legally? Those are all the details we're still trying to figure out. We have enough experience doing this so we know that sometimes those records can be a little bit difficult to kind of pull all together. Some of the other things that we're learning, and I really do need to stress, it's early in this investigation, and all this information may change as investigators continue to pour through the records that they can find, be able to get their search warrants out there and do the type of work that they need to do. But at this early juncture, he does have some social media accounts, but we're told that those accounts really don't reference today's events. and don't have some sort of specific ideology.
This is like every time there is, a car that somehow drives into, all by itself, right? There's some person behind the wheel of a vehicle that ends up driving into a crowd, crushing to death numerous people. Happens a lot in Europe. And the media just gets, well, we got a car, we drove into the Christmas market, in Dresden or whatever, city it happens to occur in. And we just have no idea. We've got a guy getting out of the car. His name is Abdul. We just have no idea on the motive. Because nobody on the left wants to admit that their entire approach to diversity has opened up the West to these types of attacks. It's a guy who came on vacation to our country, overstayed his visa, and then his violation of immigration law was sanctified by the previous administration by virtue of allowing him to stay. They actually issued him, I saw this somewhere, and I haven't seen confirmation, but somebody was writing that they issued him a work permit. So this guy gets, he instead of being booted out of the country, he gets a work permit. And again, this is part of the broken ideology. They want people like this here. The left does. And then when something happens, they're at pains to explain why. They don't want to explain why. And these are the same people, the same reporters that are first on the scene at any shooting to talk about how it's the guns that kill. It's the guns. But they never want to get anywhere near the root cause of terrorism and attacks like this, which would have to be to admit, what do all these people have in common? Well, I don't know. Maybe it's their religion. And that has to be part of the discussion. So this is just as crazy. By the way, Boulder is a very woke town. Colorado and Boulder specifically have resisted Trump's enforcement initiatives. And, even though the FBI came out and called this a terror attack, the Boulder police refused to do so. This is part of the story. It's not even just the media. This is the Boulder police chief, Steve Redfern, yesterday, Sunday evening, at a press conference, saying he's not ready to call this. He has no idea.
FBI is already calling it a targeted terror attack. Mm-hmm. Would you also refer to it as a terror attack?
So I've been in contact with our local FBI multiple times. We are in contact with them here. We are not calling it a terror attack at this point. Again, it's way too early to speculate motive. I know there's a lot out there on social media, but I ask people just to give us a little bit of patience while we work through a really complex scene. A lot of witnesses were here. We've taken them to another location to debrief them and interview them. As we do that, I think the picture will become more clear. But it would be irresponsible for me to speculate on motive this early on. We're only a couple hours into this thing.
Ah, yes. A man named Mohammed was throwing incendiary devices at Jews while yelling "Free Palestine." It's not a terror attack. Too soon to tell. We can't be certain. It's way too early to speculate on motive. Does this guy investigate criminal activity? What the hell? So funny to me. By the way, I just saw this email pop through. Somebody telling me here that his expired status, immigration status, has nothing to do with anything. Do you know that 5 of the 9/11 hijackers were in the country on expired visas? So ask yourself this. Maybe it would have been a good idea to find those people and quickly deport them. Instead, we gave them flight lessons, and the rest is history. This is, it's suicidal empathy. That's what Gad Saad calls it. Suicidal empathy. And the left has this, particularly for groups who want us dead. It brings up an interesting point, too, this sort of unholy and unnatural alliance between Free Palestine and LGBTQIA+, After all, it is Pride Month, so this is now a topic of conversation. Very strange bedfellows, if you ask me. Well, anyway, sometimes the early revolutionaries are the first to get taken out by their own. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. Greetings, friends, and welcome to the What's Right Show, your place for common sense conservatism. Monday through Friday, 1 to 3 p.m., right here on News Talk 840 KXNT. I made it back yesterday, finally back in the country after being out for 2 weeks. And funny enough, I was, of all places, in Paris in the midst of the rioting. Now, what's not being reported, this is very key. It's, long and the short of it is basically Saturday night, there was a big football game, a match between Paris, a football club in Paris, and Milan, which is a city in Italy. Anyway, big match. The French won decisively. I think the final score was 5-0. And, you know, of course, I mean, this was a major, some sort of semifinals championship game. So, so this would be cause for celebration, but it wasn't a celebration, okay? And it was, people died. Stores were getting looted. Public property, private property was being destroyed, damaged, broken, smashed, burned. And, you know, I was located, let me tell you, I was in a very secure part of the city. I was really exactly the block next to, maybe about 50, 100 feet away from the presidential palace, the Élysée Palace, where Macron was hiding from his wife. And so I'm in a safe part. The violence, the damage came fairly close to me. Less than a mile away. This didn't occur in the outer boroughs. And what nobody in the media really wants to say is that the people doing the damage here were predominantly immigrants and people from immigrant background. This wasn't French people out there. I saw the videos. I was talking to the driver on the way to the airport, and so, of course, the next morning I'm flying home and barricades everywhere, messes everywhere. Took me for a Sunday morning. I left at 8, which, typically the city is Sunday morning, 8 o'clock is dead. And it took us a very long time to make it to Charles de Gaulle. And I'm talking to the driver and asking him, not in a leading way, I'm just kind of curious, but yeah. And nobody in the media, people in the media in France want to portray it just as a little bit of fun and exuberance that got out of hand. Tell that to the businesses that were looted. Tell that to the stores that won't be able to open on Monday today. Tell that to the folks that lost their cars. Tell that to the 600 people or so that were injured. And it ties into this conversation about immigration, about Islam, about radicalism, that one thing is clear, and we as in the West need to wake up to this, that our immigration policy needs to support, our existential survival. And I saw the Poles had a big election yesterday, huge election, and it appears that the winner of the election is the anti-globalist and nationalist candidate, a presidential election. And I'm already seeing people say, well, listen, you need immigration because look at all of these countries in Europe, including Poland, that has falling birth rates. And one of the principal reasons France and Germany and other countries in Western Europe have defended mass immigration from North Africa, from Syria, et cetera, countries, places that are, a little bit hostile to Western values, is that these countries have had falling birth rates, and that in order to pump that up and to save themselves and to maintain some levels of GDP, they have to bring in more and more of these people. And I'm going to turn this argument on its head. And what I mean by that is I'm going to say that who in their right mind wants to bring children into a world where there's this level of violence? If you're a German, married to a German woman, and you're young, you're in your 20s, you think, okay, let's have kids. And then you see terror attack after terror attack. You see that the number one most popular name is Mohammed. You see your country literally going to hell. And what do you think here? You think, oh, I'm going to bring a kid into this world here, into this? No chance in hell. If you are determined to be a parent, to start a family, you're leaving. One of the things and I wrote about this, put this out on Twitter, because I was putting up some of my food posts. I had some great food when I was in Europe, and the Czech Republic now, Prague is filled with great Italian food. I mean, just unbelievable Italian food. And my suspicion of the reason why is that Italy, itself overrun with immigrants, itself beset with problems coming from the tolerance of Islamists running amok, is that a number of young, ambitious, and more importantly, traditional Italians from Northern Italy in particular are moving to Eastern Europe. They're moving to Poland. They're moving to the Czech Republic. They're moving to Hungary. And what do these fantastic Italian people do? Well, they bring their cooking with them, which is fantastic for Czechs, because I'm sorry to say this, but Czech food is not known for its gastronomical quality. So everywhere you go, you've got these young Italians opening up restaurants, and it's all fantastic. But why are they there? They are there because they're yearning for a place to be safe. In Prague, Jews can worship at synagogue. You'll see on Saturday Jews walking to synagogues in Prague. You don't see that as much in Paris anymore. Let me tell you that. It's dangerous to practice your religion openly, unless, of course, you're an Islamist, and then you can throw down your prayer rug wherever the hell you want. They are the occupiers. They are the conquerors. And we in the West seem to be asleep at the wheel. Now, the most perplexing thing here to me, I view it as an IQ test. Anybody out there who says, let's say in the U.S., let's step back from Europe. Here in the United States, anybody that gets out there and says free Palestine, I immediately perceive you to be a lobotomized idiot if that's what you're proclaiming. Free Palestine, because what is that really code for? Has nothing to do with Palestine, actually. You see LGBTQIA plus people, advocates, if you will, who are out there who will say free Palestine. They'd be very surprised, as we know, what would happen if the Palestinians were, for example, to take over the United States. Remember the perplexing thing for the left when the Somalians in Minnesota started to have conniption fits over LGBTQIA plus teaching at school, and every leftist was like, "Whoa, wait, what? We want these nice people from Africa in our country. We want diversity, but wait, they don't want to encourage other forms of diversity." Well, no, they don't. And so I love it. It's not about, it's not for the Western people, for the white liberals, when they shout free Palestine. For them, it's down with the man, down with white man, down with people in power, down with capitalism. It's a cry to arms for essentially socialistic, communistic ideology. This is why, Greta Thunberg went from, global, warming, climate change to now supporting, the Palestinian cause. It's not about Palestinians. It's not even about the environment for her. It's about fighting against capitalism, fighting against meritocracy, fighting against white people generally. And it's all comical, right? It's comical to you. It's funny to me, of course. But this is what it's all about. By the way, the Holocaust Memorial and 2 synagogues in Paris were vandalized in the midst of these riots in the wake of PSG, the French club, the Paris club, winning the Champions League. Again, nothing to do with soccer. It was an excuse for people out there to do harm. And the people doing the harm were predominantly of one type of person and background. Something nobody wants to say. It's absolutely horrifying. 559 people were arrested or detained, 491 of those in Paris. 692 fires. 692 fires, including 264 vehicles burned. Chanel and Franprix, which is a store, both located on the Champs-Elysees, were smashed and looted. Disgusting stuff. We don't have a free society anymore if we tolerate this. And that's why it's so important that, we have a president who's not putting up with it. Now, by the way, this is why I want to talk about the immigration side of this, because I don't know if you saw this over the weekend, but I just ended the last week. Robbie, what day? You'll remind me. The bus, the ICE immigration raid down in San Diego. You saw this? So the ICE agents show up at some local restaurants and begin arresting people, and they are surrounded by San Diego residents who begin abusing the ICE officials. Yeah, this is the kind of suicidal empathy that will be the end of us. And thank goodness these people lost the election. Thank goodness. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. Back in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. The What's Right show is brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law. In a crash, call Sam and Ash 702-820-1234 because you deserve what's right. Hi, welcome back. Sam Mirejovsky here. The show brought to you this hour by Sam and Ash Injury Law, 702-820-1234, because you deserve what's right. Here's a great example of a useful idiot for Islam. This is an attack recorded on camera, happened over the weekend on Saturday in Clovis, California. You know where Clovis is? This is a beautiful town just outside of Fresno. In fact, I would say just next to Fresno, sort of a suburb of Fresno. Anyway, not exactly a hotbed of radicalism, more conservative part of California in the Central Valley. Anyway, a masked trans activist attacked a Clovis resident named Josh Fulfer in his car while his wife and terrified 4-year-old looked on. Now, this is a CBS Eyewitness News local Fresno broadcast. Fulfer had been outside of a Buchanan High School Friday protesting that one 16-year-old transgender athlete who's been competing in the state track and field championship. You know, this has gotten some fair amount of attention. Anyway, out of nowhere, a masked, again, trans crusader attacks this guy, Josh Fulfer. And here's the report. Here's how it went.
I pulled up to that same corner to come home, and there was someone with a flag. And so I look over, it was someone with a transgender flag. They were wearing a black face mask, black glasses, black hoodie. It was 94 degrees out today. And they said something to me, and I said, why are you so embarrassed to show your face? You know, take off the mask. And next thing I know, they're coming across to the center divide where we are with the flagpole and starts hitting me.
A portion of the assault was caught on camera. It shows the person identified by Clovis police as 19-year-old Ethan Kroll cussing at Josh and hitting his vehicle with the end of a flagpole.
I had my wife and my 4-year-old son in the back seat. My wife was actually the one that yelled, "Spray them," and my son was actually crying in the back seat. He was upset and obviously a little terrified of what he's seen. About after 5-6 hits, I was able to get my pepper spray and pepper spray them, and that got them at least down a little bit, and then they started hitting the outside of the vehicle. I ran the red light, got to a safe area, pulled over. When I turned around, I seen Clovis PD
it's on the video.
already going towards the scene and the situation and taking that person into custody.
Yeah, peppercorn crusted tranny. This is the insanity. But wait. What kind of things was this person in midst of this attack yelling? That's the best part. Okay, wait for it. This is where it gets good. This is, by the way, again, unidentified news source in a park in Clovis discussing the attack.
All right, let me get your name and spelling of your name.
Not going to identify, but
Okay.
yeah.
And can you tell me how to...
This is the attacker.
What's your title out here today? Who are you representing?
Honestly, just my trans folk, queer folk, gay folk, all the struggling people out there, you know, Free Palestine, all the...
All right.
Can you imagine? Why don't we, once they succeed in freeing Palestine, whatever the hell that means, well, let's get all of these allies of the Palestinian movement. Let's send them all on a vacation there. Like when they get the full 2-state solution, right? And the Palestinians get their territory, let's send all of the LGBTQIA plus allies. Let's drop them in. I don't want to be rude and call it a one-way ticket. Give them a return fare. I'm just saying a fair amount of them won't make it. This is, you understand how ridiculous this is, right? And that's, and that's the thing here. Free Palestine. What does Free Palestine have to do with competing in girls' sports? See, it's not about queer ideology. It's not about Palestinian ideology. It's not about anything other than a concerted effort to bring down the entire system. These are fringe, lunatic, leftist, crazy people. And they're dangerous. And the truly frightening thing is they're too stupid to understand that, let's say they were successful and they were able to assist their friends in the Free Palestine movement, they would immediately become the hunted. They'd be the first to go. I mean, if you read a fair amount, you understand, what the Soviet Bolshevik Revolution was all about. Number of the early, most fervent revolutionaries ended up, getting shot, imprisoned, and whatnot by the regime. The regime turned quickly on its own. Same during the French Revolution. These would be the people first to go. I mean, just the whole thing is absolute madness. By the way, former FBI agent John Guandolo, this is back in 2015. I love this clip. I've played it before, but it's a reminder of the kind of common sense approach, by the way, we need to have with Islam. And I would make every single LGBTQIA pro-Palestine protester listen to this.
The entire purpose of Islam, according to all Islamic doctrine, is to ensure that there is an Islamic state throughout the entire world called a caliphate, and under that, Sharia or Islamic law is the law of the land. That's it. Islam is no more complicated than that. Islam breaks the entire world into two parts. The Dar al-Islam, where Sharia is the law of the land, and the Dar al-Harb, the house or abode of war, where there is not Sharia as the law of the land. The function of Islam is to eliminate the Dar al-Harb until the entire world is a Dar al-Islam. And the vehicle to do that is called what? Jihad, which in 100% of all published Islamic law is only defined as warfare against non-Muslims. So let's just put that on the line. And so we're here talking national security issues. We have people here that are running for the office of President of the United States, and we have to begin there.
And we do. And that's what's the craziest thing is, like, nobody wants to address this. It's Free Palestine, LGBTQIA, Democratic Socialists of America. It's an unholy, warped alliance. And the sooner that we recognize it for what it is, which is, part mental illness and then, of course, part dangerous ideology, the quicker we can dispense with it. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840. Back after this, folks. Stay tuned. Another hour of the What's Right show after this. Rarely wrong, always right. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Greetings, friends. Welcome to the program. Happy Monday. Of course, one of the big developments over the weekend is this situation in Russia, Ukraine. Ukraine used drones in a major attack on Russian territory, targeting a number of military bases, with a number of military planes damaged, some beyond repair. Now, one thing I'm not exactly clear on, and I think it's because the pro-Ukraine side says it's 40 bombers, maybe more. The pro-Russia side says it's 4, maybe as little as 2. Somewhere in the middle probably is the right number. So I'm hesitant to ascribe, give this some sort of, at this point, conclusory declaration about how successful this was. What is absolutely certainly true about the attack is that the asymmetric nature of it tells us exactly what warfare is going to be like over the next 20 years. And that is, you can have a drone that costs $400 take out a $100 million airplane. I mean, this just didn't happen 10 years ago. This didn't happen in Operation Desert Storm or, Vietnam or what. I mean, we've always talked about guerrilla warfare and about how, maybe less equipped units can take out, more equipped armies, etc. But this is wild. Reading about some of the details here, I mean, some of these drones were launched from trucks that were being perhaps operated by unwitting drivers. So people operating the trucks may not even known that they were carrying drones that were being activated remotely and then flown into and at Russian military bases. I mean, this is just crazy stuff. Now, the era, a couple of things, right? The era of the fighter jet, the era of Top Gun, okay, it is over. It's done, right? And let's look, for example, at China, whom I consider still the most formidable opponent and enemy the U.S. has. China produces 500,000 FPV drones, the kind used in this attack, every month. They could scale it up to about 700,000, according to some experts. The People's Liberation Army, the Chinese army, has already run 3 full-scale war drills using a drone swarm, meaning they activate millions of drones in the sky simultaneously and launch them at a target. This is terrifying, okay? And I don't even know that we have anti-drone systems that would be able to counter, let's say, 2 million, 3 million drones all being launched at once, all being operated by AI, not requiring individual operators, but instead these drones talking to each other and acting autonomously, making split-second decisions, all on the basis of an advanced algorithm. This is terrifying stuff. Now, I'm bringing this up here because that, to me, is the real story. And nobody really wants to talk about it. Now, as far as what this all means for, the state of the Ukraine-Russia war, my fear, of course, is that things are going to get ramped up now. Russia will respond. There are some reports that they already have targeted Ukrainian bases, and they may unleash their missile systems, the ones that basically, pulverize everything through heat instantly and travel faster than the speed of sound. And that, certainly is terrifying. There's some mention, of course, of Russia attacking targets in Western Europe. I don't necessarily believe that's the case. But this is a horrifying development, and it's happening at the same time. Other places are on the brink of protracted conflict. I saw somewhere, mention that there's a belief that Iran already has a nuclear bomb. If you listen to Mark Levin after this program, I'm sure he'll be talking about it extensively. He's of the belief that Netanyahu should immediately, with the United States, help target Iran and take them out. Now, the thought of this, by the way, terrifies me. I think I understand. Look, I don't want to see a nuclear-armed Iran, but you have Russia about to explode beyond Russia-Ukraine into a full-blown regional war. Then you've got this growing tension with Iran. You still have lingering tensions between India and Pakistan. You have border skirmishes in Cambodia. I mean, this is the makings of World War III, and we're just right here now. We'd already be there, as my belief, if Kamala Harris had somehow managed to secure the presidency. Trump is able, the single best thing that happened in the last 30 days is Trump's trip to the Middle East. By going and talking not just to Saudi Arabia and the Emirates, okay, and Qatar, but also by going and having a quick meeting with Giuliani, the new president, former terrorist, right? You have to say it's about the guy, but new president of Syria. And apparently that meeting, by the way, meeting went so well that a cartoonist for Hamas, I guess the head, political cartoonist for Hamas, last week put out a cartoon that showed Giuliani as a lapdog of the United States and Israel. Well, so, look, if Hamas doesn't like what's happening with Giuliani and feels that he is being tilted toward U.S. interests, to me, that suggests that Trump's diplomacy was successful. Now, why am I bringing this up? Why is this trip to the Middle East, the outcomes there are so helpful? Because this type of leverage helps build pressure on Putin. Putin also has relationships in the Middle East, okay? Look, and by the way, Trump also, J.D. Vance went to India, so there's efforts to build stronger ties with India, better trade. India is in BRICS. Russia's part of BRICS. So look, this type of diplomacy helping give Putin an option. You can choose World War III, okay, on one hand, or de-escalate. Find an off-ramp that is, face-saving, and come back into the international community and rebuild your country. I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball on how this turns out, but Trump is providing actively an option for Putin to back down and to de-escalate. Now, I know a lot of conservatives out there are criticizing the Ukrainian, moves here. Let's kind of give this some perspective. Russia did invade Ukraine. Ukraine is trying to bolster its position ahead of negotiations. I understand what Ukraine is trying to do. I do. I get it. I just don't think it's going to be particularly effective, because I think that Russia still has the means and the ability to absolutely crush and destroy Ukraine. I don't know, and we'll see how that plays out over the next week. But in any event, this is all very horrifying stuff, and it's all hanging by a thread. And it's going to take tremendous amount of diplomatic, activity and skill. And I think it'll take somebody of Trump's personality and strength of personality to actually, to resolve this, if it's at all possible. And the reason I believe that, I think there's only one person in the world that can talk to Vladimir Putin the way Trump does, and it's Trump. I think that's it. I think there's no other world leader, save for maybe President Xi, who can talk to Putin the way Trump does. And by the way, for all the, talking about Xi and China and Putin and Russia, Russia is fearful of China too. They share a border. Imagine having a border with China, and imagine having a country that has ambitions of expanding their influence toward, Western Europe. One country lies in the way. So, this position for Putin is not all roses, okay? But certainly we're in a tough spot. So I it'll be interesting to see how this goes. A couple more thoughts on this when we return. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840. Have to take a quick break, folks. Forgive me. What's Right show brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law, 702-820-1234, because you deserve what's right.
The Sam and Ash team, they wanted me to have the best care. They had my interests at heart. I have an enormous amount of gratitude. I cannot say enough thank you.
Hi, welcome back. Sam Mirejovsky here, back from my travels, back in the office. Good to be here. Behind the What's Right microphone, Sam at what'srightshow.com, and on X, formerly known as Twitter, at What's Right Sam. Okay, so I have this interview here from, this was last Wednesday. One of the released hostages held by Hamas, Omer Shemtov, was interviewed by Brianna Golodriga on CNN. And, he was asked about the hostage, the former hostage, was asked about sort of any what he thought about Trump. Okay. And he credits Trump with getting him out, and he describes something very interesting about what happened. I can't believe, by the way, that CNN aired this. Oh my gosh. What happened in the moment that he had, during the election, campaign, and then when Trump won, that there's actually a change of circumstances for him as a hostage once Trump became the president-elect. This is fascinating. Go.
Yes, it's him. He got me out. He got the hostages out. Before, we felt like nothing is happening, And I remember ever since he came into the road, they were very scared of him. Yeah, they wanted...
Who?
The terrorists.
We're afraid of Trump.
Yeah, they wanted Kamala to be chosen, to be elected.
You talked politics with them?
Yeah. They wanted Kamala to be elected. But as soon as Donald Trump was elected, they understood that he wants to bring the hostages back home. Yeah. So immediately the way they treated me changed. So if it's the amount of food, I could say this, that when Trump became president, yeah, the way they treated us changed for me personally.
Yeah. So they started basically, according to this guy, they started feeding the hostages more after Trump won. And why do you think that is? Why do you think that Hamas wanted Kamala Harris to win the presidency? I look, I think it's very simple and very straightforward. I think obviously Hamas fears Trump. They know Trump is not going to put up with their shenanigans. They know that Trump will just say, "All right, here, take the deal. Don't take the deal. But if you don't take the deal, I'm going to unleash Israel on you. I'm just going to let them do whatever they want." Remember, it was Biden that was literally holding Israel back from doing everything that they needed to do to bring this thing to a conclusion. And this is, by the way, this is the number one thing I tell anybody that wants to start telling me, and a lot of it's just lies and nonsense about all the terrible things that Israel is doing in Gaza. Now, it is war, it is ugly, and there's a lot of death and destruction, no question about it. So when people get at me with this and confront me on it, I always ask, what about the hostages? Have they all been released? Yes or no? And the short, answer, of course, is that they haven't been. Now, that's it, right? That's just fundamentally it. And as a consequence, if Hamas wanted to end it and wanted an actual permanent ceasefire and wanted, Gaza to be spared and wanted their civilians to live, they would release the hostages. And they would have done it, ages ago. They would have done it the day Trump became president. This was all so foreseeable. But they want the death and destruction. Okay, but that's a separate issue. What does this have to do with evading World War III? Well, if Hamas fears Trump, so does Putin on some level, okay? Right? All of these countries would have preferred to have had Kamala Harris in. They understand that Kamala Harris has come in, that Trump has come in, and has done what? Has begun building friendships with countries that are willing to talk to us. They've begun building alliances with countries formerly hostile to Israel in the Middle East. You have a number of Middle Eastern country leaders, after Trump's visit, expressing an interest in establishing a permanent and lasting peace with Israel. They've gone on the record to say this. They want to be part of the Abraham Accords. Now, this all matters because these are countries that also trade with Russia. These are countries that still have friendly relationships with Russia. These are countries that have flights to Russia. The West has shut everything down with Russia. I don't know what other sanctions really we can levy against Russia to cause them more pain. I mean, you talk to a Russian citizen now in Europe who's, somehow managed to sneak in, and it's brutal. You can't use your credit cards. You can't use any Russian money. You've got to, your exchange rate is disastrous and continues to get worse by the day. You can't wire any money out. I mean, it's terrible. So forget it. I mean, these people are completely screwed. But I don't think Russia can afford to impair relationships with Middle Eastern countries. They can't just be left to be friendly with China, which is in and of itself an adversary too. This is all it's all, I'm telling you, it's all connected. And this is why Trump started with the Middle East, because that was the place to drive a wedge between, countries that he felt that could be brought into our orbit, that could be leveraged to create peace in the Middle East, but also to drive a wedge between China and the Middle East, and to effectively block China as a regional player in parts of the world where they were rapidly expanding. And at the same time, use that as a cudgel against Russia, should he need it. So one of the things I want to always do here on the show is kind of look around corners and see what's coming. They're very interesting stuff. Now, as far as illegal immigration, I want to get to that here when we come back. Lots and lots of activity here for anybody saying, what's Trump doing? What's he getting done? He's getting a lot done on the immigration front. And he's had some victories in court, which have certainly helped. And agents are not messing around, including arresting or handcuffing, at least restraining a staffer at Congressman Jerry Nadler's office. Did you see this? Absolutely wild. I'll explain what this was all about when we come back. All right, friends, What's Right Show brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law, 702-820-1234, because you deserve what's right. Nevada's favorite recovering Californian behind the What's Right microphone, Sam Mirejovsky here. Great to be with you, friends. Great news, by the way. Supreme Court has allowed the Trump administration, for now, to end the Biden-era migrant program. So this means that the Biden humanitarian program that gave temporary residency to more than 500,000 immigrants from countries facing war and political turmoil, read places that we probably don't want people from, was revoked. Court order was unsigned, provided no reasoning. This is just a toss of a lower court injunction. So we're going to, see what the review, carries here through the, through the appellate process in the lower courts. But at any rate, good news for Team Trump. And already over the weekend, major activity from ICE and DHS, for example, at Representative Jerry Nadler's office. Now, this was wild stuff. Here, actually, a staffer apparently was detained after she was accused of pushing a federal agent. You can hear here the aftermath of it as it was going down.
No, she did not. That is not what happened.
That is not what happened. Okay.
What?
Hold on a second.
Give me your contact information right now.
No, I'm going to give you some speak to you.
Hey.
That's what I'm going to
speak
do.
to you. We got you.
No.
I got you. You're okay.
I don't have to.
You're okay. You're okay. You're going to be okay.
I'm a federal officer. We're here checking on something. We have the right to check. I'm giving you. I'm not resisting. Stop resisting. You harboring rioters in the office. So there's not a problem. Let's walk inside. Let's walk through.
For what?
Let me see what's in here. Let's go. Come on. Hold it there.
Yeah, so this is happening when they have suspected illegals holed up in Congressman Jerry Nadler's office, and then she pushed one of these staffers pushed an officer, and he had none of it. Just none of it. See, the Democrats think that they can continue to obstruct this stuff. They can play heroes in it. It's not going to work. Tom Homan isn't playing. And when you ask me, is this what you voted for? Yes, it is. Sunday, an investigative report went through a thing here. The reporter found migrants that were being arrested at Dallas Immigration Court as they were being released by judges. Okay? They were being released by the judges, given a pass, much like, by the way, this Muhammad guy that started lobbing Molotov cocktails at Jews in Boulder, Colorado, got a pass where judges just let him loose. Here, ICE is standing by to pick up the pieces. Listen to this report.
We captured the moment two men went from migrants to detainees. It happened last week at Dallas Immigration Court when nearly a dozen people showed up to have their asylum cases heard. Their cases were dismissed by the judge, and when they walked out of the courtroom, plainclothes federal agents were waiting to take them into custody. Immigration attorney Belinda Arroyo says targeting migrants at the courthouse used to be a rare event.
What does it do when an ICE agent is in the court and they're not dealing with somebody who's currently in ICE custody?
Well, I think it makes everybody be on edge.
It's not just happening in Dallas. Asylum seekers in San Antonio were seen crying and begging for help as they were led away in handcuffs. Two Department of Homeland Security officials tell CBS News ICE is asking immigration judges across the country to dismiss the court cases of certain migrants so the agency can arrest them once their hearings end and place them in a fast-track deportation process known as expedited removal. Outside a Miami courthouse, this migrant in cuffs says in Spanish, it's a trap.
So, all right. So, by the way, Secretary Noem and the Department of Homeland Security released a statement to CBS News saying that basically, they're not doing this catch and release nonsense anymore, and they're just not allowing millions of unvetted illegals into the country, and that's all that this is. I don't know, by the way, if this is true. I've heard from a number of people saying it's not a deliberate thing that they're asking these cases to be dismissed. It was routine for these people to be released. This is what was always done. They go in there and they say, well, we'll see you again in the next hearing and 10 years to never. And voila, de facto legalization. That's what this whole thing under Biden was all about. They would just push these hearings back. And it would functionally legalize illegals. Now it's game over. The ICE agents are showing up there. They're doing expedited removals. They're not even fussing with the court system. And yes, this is adequate notice and due process. If you're illegal, you don't need to go through immigration court. You have to have a process. You have to have perhaps an officer reviewing it, but there's expedited removal. Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, and you're gone. This is all normal stuff. By the way, did you see this crazy story out of right here out of Nevada? A DHHS specialist, Deshaun Ellie Mack, got busted in an undercover interview, basically giving assistance to illegal immigrants. And this despite Nevada and, of course, Las Vegas not being sanctuary states, sanctuary cities. So this is a big national story. It all got released over the weekend. Here's the first part of the interview.
So, are you able to help undocumented people, with assistance to stay here and, get medical help and all that stuff?
We do it all the time. Unfortunately, after Trump got elected, we had a sharp decline in our Cuban clientele and our undocumented clientele that just weren't coming in.
Because they didn't want to get found out?
Correct. And a few times we and my coworkers have actually claimed to them we would never call us. We do not work with them ever. And I believe that is something we have on the books. We do not call immigration ever. All the time. I just approved of it. Oh, Cuban passport, thank you. There you go. Even undocumented people from Mexico and things, I can still give them benefits. I give them emergency medical all the time, just because I want to.
So this guy's advertising, boasting about the fact that he's giving away taxpayer money here in Nevada to illegals, to people with Cuban passports. It's crazy. Or Mexicans, or whoever, right? So, but listen to this, right? This it's just wild. And to think he's doing this all, he's completely fine with it. How many of these guys like Mac exist in Nevada and across this country?
Even though it doesn't cover anything, still, it's emergency Medicaid. And even emergency medical is a month-by-month basis, and it's supposed to be used for undocumented people if they've been hospitalized or something, so that they're not footing the bill. Medicaid can cover some of those expenses, but they're supposed to apply every month. So I just approved them for 12 months because I can.
So here's what he's saying. He's like, look, I make it so he's like, even emergency medical is a month-by-month basis, and it's supposed to be for undocumented people. Let's say they get hospitalized or something. We're looking at footing the bill, Medicaid and probably some of those expenses, but they're supposed to apply every month. So I just approved them for 12 months because I can. Mac bends the rules for immigrants And certain people do the same. Again, he's not working alone.
Oh, is that like allowed technically, or?
I make rules.
Nice.
So
I make it so.
I bend the rules a lot.
I bend the rules a lot.
I don't know. If you come see me, I'm giving you benefits. I don't know. That's just how it is.
Like no matter who you are, pretty much.
Yeah, I'm just giving you benefits because that's what my tax money is.
Oh.
So, to the extent that I'm able to, but I bend the rules a lot.
Interesting. I'm sure there's many ways to flout the system in every department, I'm sure.
Correct. It just takes certain people to do it.
Yeah, I trust that our U.S. Attorney for the state of Nevada Sigal Chattah is looking at this very closely. This guy very well could be charged with state and federal crimes. He actually admits that he doesn't care that what he's doing is illegal. He says it on tape.
So would that technically be subverting a law at all at that point?
I do that a lot. I will twist and turn our provisions to fit the way that I want them to. So whether it's a law or not, I don't know. Because I don't care after.
You know, this by the way is particularly important because some laws require a mens rea, require a consciousness of guilt. So by consciousness of guilt, here obviously expressed, he knows he's breaking the law. He says literally, I do bend the law. I will twist and turn our provisions to fit the way that I want them to. So whether it's the law or not, I just don't know. I don't care. I don't care actually. I could see federal charges resulting from this because a number of state programs, such as our state medical programs, are funded in large part by federal money, and so there it is. Yeah, it's federal. Yeah, federal money. And I mean. On that basis, the federal government would have standing to charge him under a U.S. code section. So this is really, really, really bad news for him. But it also gives us a glimpse of what these people are doing. It's not. There's plenty of them out there. And they do need to be prosecuted. It needs to be ferreted out because this is one of the things that was keeping illegals in the country, all of this free stuff. You could see the Democrats were invested in handing it out. Absolutely shameful. Sam Mirejovsky here. I'll be right back in just a moment. All right, I debated whether or not to touch on this topic, but I'm going to do so just ever so very quickly. Yes, I'm going to do it. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. Glenn Greenwald. This is a journalist most famous for breaking the NSA spy story. With Snowden and basically revealing that America was actively spying on its citizens and doing so just warrantless wiretapping, etc. It was really a bombshell story and very critical that story got out. And over the years I've certainly not always agreed with Glenn Greenwald, but smart guy and respect him as a journalist. Glenn, of course, is gay. And so there's some videos that came out and everybody's commenting on them. I'm not going to watch them. Apparently, these videos are disgusting. And one of the things that is being said about the video is that there's a crack pipe that's, in the room, which I hope Glenn Greenwald is not using crack because the last famous public person to use crack extensively ended up needing new teeth and a presidential pardon, which I'm not entirely sure Glenn will get. Now, I want to address the part of this, a story that I think is kind of interesting, is people are speculating that these videos were released by Mossad. I don't know if you've heard this, Robbie. The suspicions are that the Mossad broke into, and they've got apps to do this, right? Broke into Glenn Greenwald's phone and released these videos just as Greenwald was going full pro-Palestine, all right? Well, not pro-Palestine. I mean, he was starting to go anti-Israel. Now, look, we could find evidence down the road that happened. But in the meantime, something about this. Apparently, these videos may have even been released by Greenwald himself. People are saying that based on what they saw in the video, and again, I hate to do this, folks. I typically will look at something, make my own opinion, and then talk about it. I'm just not going to look at this thing. I just don't need it. It's gross. But if it is how people describe it, it sounds like Glenn Greenwald has a little bit of a humiliation fantasy. And I'm telling you, people that have this fantasy release this kind of stuff out there, put it out there as part of the humiliation ritual. And he's not embarrassed by it. He's saying, this is my personal private life. These were consenting adults. I hope his kids were nowhere near it. I think it's gross. And I see a lot of conservatives saying, well, it doesn't really matter what you do. Well, it does. That's a reminder of something that I didn't even really necessarily put together at the time, but Glenn Greenwald's much younger husband died from a infection, basically. I don't even want to get into all the details, but basically the result of having vigorous gay sex. That's what happened. Something ruptured back there and got infected, and the guy died from it. So it's just, gosh, it's just is gross and happy Pride Month, all right. But I'm not going to indulge these rumors that it was Mossad that got him or whatever. I think there's a lot of other explanations. And by the way, they were apparently both filming this, so there's no such thing as a secret kept among two people. It's just not going to, or between two people, not going to happen. All right. Well, terrible stuff. Gross. All right, well, I need a palate cleanser from this. By the way, let's talk about the Democrats and how lost they are. Lifelong Democrat explaining why they voted for Trump. This is interesting. This is a woman. This was on Saturday. GB News Originals interviewed her and really asked her, you serious? You were a Republican? You voted Democrat?
So you were a Democrat?
I was my whole life.
Really?
I first voted for Bill Clinton and voted Democrat every single year until, November.
And what do you think of Trump now? What do you think of his policies on deportation?
You know what? I can't tell you specifics about his policies, but what I will tell you is that it was not for Donald Trump, we might still be living next to gang members because everything changed after he was elected.
So you feel a lot safer now that he's in the White House again? I
do, because he's taking it seriously. The Democrats simply ignored it. They said it was lies. They won't talk to people who have been victimized by this.
Now, I know you said you were a gun owner.
This is the husband.
Are you a gun owner?
Now we are.
Because of this?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So you've turned from like a Democrat, Bill Clinton supporter to now a gun owner. Did you think that would happen?
Never in my life. I'm the last person. Absolutely the last person. I used to have a group called Teachers United for Immigrant Rights.
It went too far. All of it, the insanity went too far. And now this British reporter is completely flabbergasted. The ex-Democrat adds, you can't just have anybody cross the border. I wonder how this is being received back in England.
We can't just have anyone cross the border. And if they're showing us that their intentions are not to live in a peaceful way with us, then why not deport them? And so people are arguing about the policies of that, and they're talking about due process. But I think we need to look at, do we interpret due process for people who have crossed our border illegally differently than U.S. citizens? Because I think we also have due process, right? I mean, we're talking about the right to live peacefully.
This is exactly right. I tell you, the biggest fail on the part of the Democratic Party is deciding to ignore ordinary Americans' concerns on immigration. This was the biggest fail. And one of the reasons the Democratic Party lost so many people, including Hispanics, other minorities, even women, is because they gave up on, border security. They gave up on public safety. They went all in with defund the police, pro-BLM, etc. They became the party of tolerizing and normalizing violence and criminal activity and lawlessness. And this is where they've lost the votes. We have an opportunity as Republicans really to pick this up. It's a cautionary tale for the midterms. And this is why the immigration action on Trump's part is so important. All right, I'm up against the clock. I got to go. Be back tomorrow, Tuesday. Don't worry. More of the program up next. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. Sam at whatsrightshow.com and at whatsrightsam on Twitter. See you tomorrow, folks. Be well.